It comes down to this. You got to make a decision. The tag has to go on, and LJarius Sneed is going to get it. What does that mean? And who else is no longer on this roster today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors, Chiefs Kingdom around the world. This is Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every single day. We start here on YouTube where you can like and sub and hit the bell. We would appreciate all three, please. And then you can move on to Spotify and Audible or Odyssey or wherever they happen to be. Check out Apple as well. That's probably one of the big ones, where you can get the audio feeds every single day. Doesn't hurt to be subscribed on two platforms, folks. We're free all the time, every day, sometimes more than 5 days a week, but at least 5. And you everydayers, we appreciate you. You guys already know that stuff, but if you want to be an everydayer, go get subbed, and you can hit the text line. The locos always show up there, and it's 816-357-8781 for breaking news, which we had some of today. Today, we are brought to you by FanDuel, though, because every moment is more. You can make it that way. Right now, new customers get $150 back on a $5 bet that wins. That's it. $150 bonus back on your account if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. We are going to get to all the major news. MVS has been released. That's coming up later in the show. LJarius Sneed can look for a trade partner, we understand. That is going to be very important and key to how this whole offseason unfolds. But we're going to get started with the franchise tag and the fact that it's going to LJarius Sneed. It's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where we do the athletic matrix and all the metrics that you need for the draft class. You can find that there on rogueapc.com. You can find all the articles, evidence, film rooms, everything. If you get subbed over on NFL33.com, then you can find the rest of my work at RGR Football with the rest of my crew. Chris does everything on Chiefs Corner, and right now there's some cool stuff coming out there about what this cap looks like and what the possibilities truly are. I go there to learn about the cap, so I think you guys should too. Lots coming here, and we've seen it reported that the tag is going to LJarius Sneed. Not super surprised. It was one of two options. It hasn't officially hit yet. They actually have till March 5th to do it, but that's what we understand is happening, and I can't say that I'm super surprised. I like that it's early, or at least we're getting the intention of it early. How panicked are you?
I'm not. I think that this was the move that's made a lot of sense. Chris Jones's number is just something that you don't really want to put out there on a franchise tag. It's possible that they could have gone that direction, but it would cost them another $13 million, and you tie it up for however long it takes to sign the contract. I think when you look at what this is doing and what this says to me is Veach learned from last year when he had the deal with Chris Jones and he was trying to figure out how to get him extended and it didn't work out. And then he wasn't able to make other moves that this franchise really could have used last year to help them. And obviously they still won a Super Bowl, so it all worked out. But there were other moves to be made. I'm pretty sure he would have done them if they were able to get Jones extended and cut his cap number probably in half at least, if not more.
Yeah, this cap number comes in at 19.8 for the corners. It was 32.4 for the defensive tackles. Is that correct?
No, it's 32.4 for Jones because it's 120% of what he made last year. Right. So it's different for him.
That calculation does vary year to year. So that's a significant savings. And like you said, with some of the other things that happened today, we're going to talk about those later, you give yourself some room. What it also does for me, and I don't mind this. I see a lot of people, particularly on social media, hitting me up about panic about how we haven't seen the official transaction. It's not actually applied yet. Well, all the reports tell us that it is happening. And I actually think that that's an advantage because right now he understands the intention, but you haven't had to place it yet. So you got a little bit of variability for the Chiefs if something goes absolutely wrong. And in the meantime, LJarius understands his situation. It's a tough situation, is that he's brought up in the organization. He has flourished here under the leadership of a guy that we're going to talk about in a minute, along with Steve Spagnuolo and obviously Andy Reid. It's tough to go outside of that, but if you want to truly get paid, if you think that you have the best contract of your life is your opportunity right now at 27 years old, which I would agree with, he's got to go make the most of it, and there's no better time for him than right now. So now he gets to go see what it's like out there.
Yeah, and I actually am going to have an article up on Chiefs Corner on Friday about what contract projection could be for Sneed. So that's something that I'm looking at, just an idea as to what they think that he could possibly get out on the free agent market. So that's going to be something to watch. And the other thing that really I like about this move is they announce it at the scouting combine where all the teams are right now anyway. So if you have anybody that comes up to, or you have anybody that's interested in maybe trading for Sneed, they could just go have a one-on-one conversation with Veach and say, hey, or somebody around Veach in his inner circle and say, hey, I have some interest, and they could go on that down that direction to try to start talking. Okay, what's it going to cost trade wise? Because because if they franchise him, they're going to get something back in return. So that's going to be a part of him getting his max value. But I completely agree. This is his best chance to get a big contract. 27 years old, he is not going to have a better chance of getting something later down the line. So he needs to try to cash in on it now.
Yeah. And we're going to go through some of the trade scenarios and how this all works at this point here coming up in a little bit. But first, he has that opportunity because of his play, because he's a shutdown corner at this point. You can make all kinds of arguments about the situations around it, the fact that he missed camp last year, the whole 9 yards. But that's the truth. Is on the field this season, he took away the best receiver consistently and nearly every single time. And that only becomes possible if you have the coaching that you need. And so the other news that broke late this afternoon, just before we started recording, is that the guy who has helped him get there in Dave Merritt is being interviewed by the 49ers for their defensive coordinator position. Dave Merritt is the secondary coordinator at this point in Kansas City and runs the safeties and corners. That would be catastrophic to their triple three-peat run, in my opinion. I don't know if it gets done or if it's just simply an impetus like it was for Joe Cullen to get a raise, maybe a bump in title, etc. But that is the breaking news right now. How fearful are you, and what changes should Dave Merritt go elsewhere?
That would be a huge loss for Kansas City. I didn't think that he was going to be going anywhere because he was wanting his kids to get through high school. So I'm a little surprised he's taking the interview, but reality is money is going to talk, and a position to actually be a DC is something out there. And if you're the 49ers, that's definitely a place that I would go looking. Is Kansas City, the team that has beat you 2 out of the last 5 years for a Super Bowl? And really, I mean, they beat him 2 years ago in the regular season as well. So they've had plenty of experience playing Kansas City over the last 5 years. So I would definitely be looking at a guy like Dave Merritt. I think that he could do a fantastic job. I just hope that he is not able to go to San Francisco at this time.
I agree. That would be troublesome. And I will say this. You have to take the interview if you're Dave Merritt. There's no way around that. You don't have to take the job. And I wonder if you still aren't correct about having that family life and being in Kansas City for the time being allows you to take this and maybe get a little bump yourself and stay put. But if there was one team that could lure away, it is the other team that just got in that Super Bowl, because that's not much of a step down if you're Dave Merritt in terms of your likelihood to still have success. So good for him. We'll see what happens, and we'll have news for you breaking whenever that does come around. But we also have to talk about what happens next with LJarius Sneed, and there are some interim steps. He can seek a trade partner. I think that's the most likely scenario, and it's coming up right after this here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. What is it that you would do if you had an extra hour in the day? For me, there's lots of different things that I like to do. Reading is one of them. Maybe I would go read an extra book over a week period. That is definitely something that I would love doing. Go watch more film, go watch more of the Chiefs, even though the season's over. Lots of different things I could do with an extra hour. The question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And Ryan's muted.
Sometimes you come back from break and it doesn't unmute on you. But if you're looking for all the audio and all the video that you can get, it's on the Locked On Sports Today feed. It's 24/7. You get all the breaking news that you're looking for. Go sub over there to that right now. I think you guys are going to dig it, and we'll throw you there after this show is complete as well. But that said, it comes down to scenarios, and I would have liked to have seen something get worked out. I'd love to say, hey, they got a contract done in a week after the Super Bowl with either Chris or LJarius. Not the way that it is. So the other aspect of this, you touched on in the last segment, is that they're able to explore trade partners. And that doesn't necessarily mean it has to go through Veach. This is LJarius and his representatives being able to go seek trade partners. And that comes down to a couple of things. It's not just the mechanics of, hey, would you like to have a guy that should have been an all-pro corner who can take away Tyreek Hill when he has to? Oh, yes, I would love that. That's a common thing. It's more about, hey, you want a guy that's going to take away every receiver in this game, how much you willing to pay for him? And that's what it is. This is about contract negotiations. When the tag goes on and you were to work out a trade, it would come with a new contract for whoever takes him on. That is the only way that this kind of deal generally gets done. And so it comes into the valuation for LJarius Sneed. And I know that you've been looking at that. That's the key part of this.
Yeah, and there's lots of different variables that you can look at when it comes to valuation. Stats don't really tell the full story. Unfortunately, you have to watch the games, but the NFL teams are going to have as much information on Sneed as they want. Other than really the only thing that they're not going to know about is medical, because there's no way to get that until you have them in your building. So, that's going to be a part of this as well. But when you start looking at projections, I mean, you look at a guy like Jalen Ramsey, who is one of the highest paid corners in the league. Is Sneed going to reset the market? That's a big question. Every projection I've seen actually has him less than the franchise tag. So how is that going to turn out? The other question, and I kind of did mention this earlier, what's the compensation that the team is going to be paying to get you? What are they going to give up? I mean, is it going to be a first-round pick? Is it going to be a second-round pick? Corners are a premium position, and one of the things that actually makes this something, and I want to be clear, I don't want to see Sneed on another team, but one of the things that does play in Kansas City's favor is they have shown the ability to draft and develop guys. So that makes it a little bit more palatable.
I completely agree with you, but I will tell you the one thing that I think makes this something that people want to see. One touchdown. That's what it comes down to. He held everybody out of the end zone until that Khalil Shakir corner route that Josh Allen threw on, a cannon out of his hand. You can lead to an entire regular season. Most teams that are going to be interested in LJarius Sneed are not playoff teams. They're like, can you get us through 17 games? And he'll be like, hey, I play 20 games every year. Sure, no problem. That's going to be what it comes down to. And I think that's why the valuations aren't necessarily accurate based on what teams want. They are willing to go out and get a guy because for them, if you can get to a 10-7 record, if you can get to a 12-5 record, that's success for the vast majority of teams in this league. LJarius is a guy that can help get you there.
I don't disagree with you. What I will say, though, is I think that having to give up draft pick compensation actually could bring down the contract a little bit because you're having to pay more. So while I do think that on the free agent market, maybe he is getting 21, 22 million, he's not really going to be a free agent. I don't know if that's going to be the case this year. I don't know. We'll see what he gets offered. I'm sure there are going to be teams out there that are going to offer him something. I'm sure that they're going to get trade offers. So we'll see what he gets. But it's going to be interesting as well because the cap went up so much. Is this when the corner market gets reset? Because Jalen Ramsey got a big contract a couple of years ago, but everything's kind of fallen off since.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think what it does also is it allows for the Kansas City Chiefs, for Brett Veach, for the whole front office, it allows you to let someone else do the dirty work.
Yep.
If LJarius wants to get the most bang for his buck, and you're willing to do that, they're clearly willing to pay him $19 million a year for at least a singular year.
Yep.
But you don't have to go shop him. You don't have to do the work and make the calls. You got a draft class to prepare for. This is already a compressed timeline for the front office in Kansas City. Now the agent goes and does the work. This is very similar to what happened with Tyreek Hill. It's just that most people have been concentrating and prognosticating that it would be Chris Jones in this situation, not LJarius Sneed.
Yeah, and the interesting part to me here is that because of, and I know we've talked about this a little bit, but I need to say it again. Because of the way the restructure with Mahomes' deal worked last year, they moved when his bonuses are due. It's not due till May. So they can carry him all the way up to the draft at that price and then decide, okay, well, maybe there's some free agents out there that we want to go sign right before the draft, and we still need money for our free agency class, or not free agents, sorry, draft class. They can restructure Mahomes and free up as much money as they want, and they don't have to do it till May. So it's possible that they carry him and this trade gets done right at the draft. It's possible it happens right before the draft. I will say this, though. If they're going to trade him, I expect that it's going to happen before the draft, because I don't think that they want to go into a situation where they're trying to sign him to a long-term deal from May to July.
Absolutely, I agree. If a trade's going to happen, it's going to happen before the draft, because the compensation has to be, I think, at a minimum, a second round plus. I think there's a possibility you can get a first round pick for LJarius Sneed. I know most teams are going to point to the fact he was a fourth round selection in the first place, but he is playing as a first rounder. He is producing like a first rounder, and he's still got enough youth left in the bag that I think that's something the Chiefs might have to push for a little bit, but I think it's reasonable to see them get.
Yeah. He's not going to bring what Tyreek Hill got, but he could get, I would agree, he could get a first rounder. I would imagine it'd be a low first rounder, but I could easily see a second rounder and then something else.
Yeah. I think it's definitely a possibility. And you also have to account, it can't be too low, because I doubt the Chiefs are going to willingly trade with another playoff team, especially in the AFC. I believe if this does happen, this is to an NFC team that probably has not only money to spend, but enough capital that they think they can make up for it. I am not looking past another team that happens to play up in Chicago that has their own corner issue going on with Jalen Johnson. You never know what's going to happen there. I'm just putting that out there as a possibility, but there are lots of possibilities, especially when you free up some cap space. That's exactly what else happened today. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is no longer a Kansas City Chief. What does it mean? Why did it happen? Well, I think you know that, but where does it go from here? Coming up next on the Locked On Podcast Network. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers, you get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet right now on FanDuel. That's $150 if your bet wins. Super straightforward and simple. Bet all your favorite NBA players with the teams that you're looking for, whether it's quick bets, same game parlays, exclusive props, and everything else under the sun. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot today. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon at FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the NFL. Plenty of news here on a Wednesday afternoon. You can get that for every team around the league, as well as all the other major sports on the Locked On Sports Today feed here on YouTube. Go grab that. It's 24/7. If you're in a Uber and you want something to watch, if it's late night and you're waiting on that DoorDash delivery, we'll tell you about DoorDash another day. You can be sitting there watching Locked On Sports Today all the time. So check that out. One person who might be doing that very thing, because she doesn't have much to do right this moment, is one wide receiver who is now out of Kansas City in MVS. This is something we talked about, very, very likely. I would put it this way. Thank you for your postseason efforts. Good luck in your next venture. But in the end, I don't think there was enough to really retain him. And clearly, what it does for the cap is significant.
450 routes ran last year in 21 catches. That's what I think this comes down to. And I agree with you completely. And I said this in my article I put on Chiefs Corner, just touched on this. Thank you for the postseason. Because if he's not on this team last year, I don't know that they make it to the and I mean 2022 to be clear. I don't think they make it past the Bengals. And he caught the pass that got him to the Super Bowl against the Ravens too. Obviously, they're in a situation still to win, but he had a big game in the playoffs, and he's done great things for them in the playoffs. Just wasn't able to get done in the regular season. This move was expected, though. I mean, $12 million freed up, $2 million dead cap, puts the Chiefs right at about $9 million to go, a little bit more than $9 million on cap space. So lots of different things to talk about with this move, but this was the most expected move. There's probably still several more that are going to be coming, But I am really kind of happy that they did it now. It shows that Veach is ahead of the game in a little bit. He's making sure that he's not going to be stuck kind of like he was last year, and he's making moves ahead of time. And it also gives MVS a chance to catch on before free agency.
And you know they will. I would not be surprised to see him in another playoff team. Maybe one that has to play the Kansas City Chiefs at some point next year. So look for the revenge game. I think it's coming. But what it does is all tie into all of this conversation about still trying to get Chris Jones under contract long-term, either getting a contract done with LJarius Sneed after the tag, whatever it is, or getting that traded. You have to have cap space. What does this do for the situation specifically for those two players?
Well, I did the calculations last night, and I'll have an article that's going up tomorrow on Chiefs Corner showing exactly how this could happen. But the Chiefs right now with LJarius Sneed at 19.8 can still sign Chris Jones to a long-term deal with the cap space they have available. I'm not saying that they don't have to make other moves. I'm saying that with the cap space they have available, they could sign Chris Jones to a 4-year deal. $9 million for 2024 for Chris Jones. That would be his cap number, around $9 million. That's what they have. I'll show you how it's done tomorrow, but there's lots to talk about when you start looking at the cap. I mean, what people need to understand is just because we're talking $9 million for 2024 doesn't necessarily mean it's hugely backloaded, because you have to remember signing bonus is a big deal. And that's a big part of how these contracts are done. So that takes into account how you get such a low number in the first year, which is generally how the Chiefs do their contracts.
Yeah, it's low base salary. You don't have an option to prorate it anywhere other than evenly over the course of the years, correct?
Correct. And it's low base salary, and it's whatever their number of accrued seasons is. I think for Jones it's around $1.2 million in 2024. So his money above that would be signing bonus. So yeah, there's other things that you're going to add in. Yeah, there's going to be other moves that are going to be made. And I understand Kansas City wants to probably retain some of their own guys, but they could get it done with just the cap space they have from releasing Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And I want to be clear on something, because this was pointed out a couple days ago after we talked about the cap. One of the reasons they lost so much cap space is because they have 3 guys in Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and Nick Bolton, who got big raises for their 4th year because of how much they've played. So that's where some of the cap space went for 2024 already.
Yeah, that calculation is always moving, and there's always the end of season extended pay. There's a number of other factors that go into it. That makes a lot of sense. But at this point, MVS gave some valuable play. It wasn't enough to keep him on the roster. Allows you to have cap space, allows you more maneuverability. If he should not find the market out there, I believe this is true of McCole Hardman, that signs him somewhere else. And the way that McCole Hardman's talking, I don't know that he's going back to New York, that's for sure. But
I don't know that he's going to be back in Kansas City with the way he's talking either.
Well, hey, there's a number of things that could happen, but at this point, the maneuverability that it buys the Kansas City Chiefs and Brett Veach in particular was well worth it. So again, we say thank you to MVS. Good luck at your next stop, and we'll go from there. Now, there are plenty of other things going on around Chiefs Kingdom. Obviously, there's an NFLPA report that we need to talk about. There is some conceptual drawings. I'm not sure if this all comes to pass, about an $800 million proposal to update Arrowhead Stadium that we will discuss. We're going to do those tomorrow, and then we start in on it. After that is our first mock draft Monday. You want to know who's going to be a Chief or what the possibilities are? Be with us on Monday as we take a fresh look at what the 2024 draft can be for the Kansas City Chiefs. Enjoy the combine. I'll be watching all of it. The matrix will be formulated as we go through. It will be available matrix only. The draft guide will be available, all of it on rogueapc.com. And I'll have some instant insights as we go through the weekend. And then we'll also have, obviously, all the breakdowns that you can go get over at rogueapc.com. Don't miss Chris's article tomorrow over at Chiefs Corner. Get all of that put together.
Yeah, and I'll also have an article coming out on LJarius Sneed on Friday, so going to have both those guys covered. And we'll probably be doing more free agent deals in the coming weeks, so be on the lookout for that.
Latest content of mine on NFL33.com is 5 prospects you want to watch. One of them is a local. Actually, 2 of them are local guys on my top 5. And then what does this combine look like? Plenty of content coming for you, as long as a conversation, continuation of part of what you saw with Randy Mueller here on this channel is over on my personal one as well. So check that out. Thanks for being with us today. We very much appreciate you guys. Get on the text line at 816-357-8781. That's how you can get all the information as soon as you need to get it. And like, sub, hit the bell here on YouTube. Get on Spotify. Get on Apple. You can get us on any free platform 5 days a week, and you locals know that. We appreciate you. Have a great night.